Hello and good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you here in Brussels from the permanent representation of the state of Hessen. As you know, due to the pandemic situation, this event has to be organized in an online format, but it's great to have you from all over the world at this event. Today's topic is Romania has voted. So there have been a few surprises in this election. My name is Ingrid Steiner-Gashi. I'm the EU correspondent for the Austrian Kurier media house, and it's a pleasure for me to guide you through this event. Our expert on the Romanian side is the TV journalist, an absolute expert in political matters in Romania, Lucian Pîrvoiu. As you know, our event has a translation as well in German and English with the simultaneous translation. Mr. Pîrvoiu is going to deliver an overview concerning the election results and explain briefly what this will mean on the ground. And afterwards there will be an opportunity to ask questions in the discussion. The discussion will be about 15 to 20 minutes long. But first of all, I'd like to indicate a welcome word by the Minister for Federal and European Affairs of the State of Hessen, Mrs. Lucia Pîrvoiu. Please, let's listen to the welcome speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you in our representation of the state of Hessen in Brussels. Today's event is about the elections in Romania that took place on the 6th of December. I'm really happy that you've been able to join us here. Before the elections, the minority government in Romania had difficult situations. Parliamentary majorities were difficult to reach, so it would have been preferable to have clearer majorities after these elections. The final result was a different one. It was a surprise. Against all agnostics, the PSD, Social Democratic Party, got most votes, whereas the National Liberal Party became the second strongest force. It's also surprising that the rather unknown nationalist Alliance for Unification of the Romanians became the fourth strongest force with more than 8%. So we were hoping for a clear result, and it did not take place. We would be interested to see how this result came along and how a new government will be set up in Romania. With the European Next Generation EU initiative, major subsidy programs all foreseen. We're hoping that this will lead to more innovation as well in the country. For that, we need governments ready to act in the whole of Europe. Before the corona crisis, Romania was on a good path. EU funds and investments from the EU abroad countries led to growth rates that was interesting. Software companies settled. Automotive companies, Ford and Dacia, are producing in Romania. The textile industry with 250,000 jobs is giving a textile majority role for Romania in the European Union. With the corona crisis and a strong connection with the EU internal market, the success story came to an end, or at least has been suspended in 2020. Production and consumption went back. Romania needs the EU internal market. We have invited two leading journalists and experts to have an analysis concerning these results on the situation in Europe and in the country. I'm looking forward to an interesting exchange and debate. Thank you very much. Thank you, dear Minister. Maybe you are already wanting to ask questions concerning the Romanian election results. Please do so by writing your question or by calling in. So the email address is streamline at lv-brussel with an ue.hessen, or give us a call on the Belgian number 0032 and then 472 030181. We are looking forward to all your questions.
And would like to introduce our expert, Mr. Lucian Pîrvoiu. I hope I have spelled your name right. Lucian Pîrvoiu is one of the leading journalists in Romania. He's working for the public television, TVR. For 6 years now he has been the Brussels correspondent of TVR. Right now at the moment he's in Bucharest due to the pandemic, but he will be right back afterwards, we hope next year. Mr. Pîrvoiu has studied in Bucharest, but also as an Erasmus student in Aix-en-Provence, and started working for the public Romanian television in the year 2000. He has been working as economic and political correspondent, and for some years he has been the face of the evening news of TVR2, which is the second channel of the Romanian television. So, hello Lucian, we are happy to see you here now and very, very interested in to hear your short overview about what has happened on Saturday and what has maybe surprised you a bit. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, for the invitation. 4 years ago, I had the honor to be present physically at the representation of Hessen to present the results of the election in 2016. Now, with this pandemic, unfortunately, I can't be physically present, but Zoom is working wonders. So let's begin. We had the elections this weekend, and the results are pretty surprising because on a very low turnout of about 30%, which was the lowest in history, the figures are such that we cannot say that we have a winner, we cannot indicate a winner, which is very complicated from the perspective of the next year and the perspective of the European engagements. And I mentioned here the Next Generation EU and the fact that we have to build a strong administration in order to get all that European funds and to recover the country after the pandemic. So, talking about the results of the parliamentary election on 6 December, compared to 2016, when we had a flow of red voters, of socialist voters of 45.4, now the Socialist Party decreased to 29.7 points, which is a lot considering the fact that the European parliamentary elections in May 2019, they lost a lot. They had like 25%, but with the pandemic, they managed to erode the government by criticizing the way that the government, the liberals, managed the pandemic, and here they are with almost 30% overall. For the liberals, compared to the elections in 2016, they won 5%. They had 20% in 2016, and now they have 25.2, which is an advance, but they are not pleased with this score. They waited like 30 or 32, and this is the reason for which the Prime Minister Ludovic Orban stepped down after hearing these results. The third force, USR Plus, the progressists, as we call them, this alliance between two parties, obtained 14.7, which is much lower than their expectations, which were for about 23-25%, so much lower than expected. In 2016, they obtained 8.9 of the votes percent, with the precision that at the time Plus did not exist yet, so only USR participated in the general elections 4 years ago. The big surprise now in the parliament will be this new but not so new party, the Alliance for the Unity of the Romanians. It is a radical, far-right radical party, which has this astonishing percent of 8.6%. The explanation behind this ascension must be pretty simple. They existed before with a coalition for the traditional family. We had a referendum in 2018 which did not pass, but the initiative was based on 1 million voters. So all these forces gathered around a nationalist, a pretty known nationalist, George Simeon, and formed this party, and had a very good campaign in the diaspora, in the Romanian diaspora. They are not present on Romanian media, only in the social media, but not very much, and very, very present in the diaspora, which voted massively for them. And now we have in parliament, after so many years, a new radical force after the party Greater Romania disappeared some years ago. The next political force which will be present in the parliament are the Hungarians, the alliance of the Hungarians, UDMR, which has traditionally a basin of 6-7%. They will be in the parliament with 6%. In 2016, they had 6.2%. Another deceiving surprise is the fact that the party of the ex-president Traian Băsescu, currently a member of the European Parliament, PMP, member of the EPP, so Conservator Christian Democrat Party will not enter in the parliament. They only had 4.6 this time. They do not pass the threshold of 5%. In 2016, they barely passed it with 5.4%. And another surprise, given the fact that they had pretty much money to invest in the campaign, and they were present everywhere by their leader, Victor Ponta, the ex-prime minister, pro-Romania, he won't enter in the parliament, and we must make the precision that in this alliance with Ponta allied was another prime minister, Călin Popescu-Tăriceanu. So two ex-prime ministers leave the political scene because they do not have any other political future. So next slide, you'll see pretty much the components of the parliament separated on the Chamber of the Deputies and on the Senate. You can see that the numbers and figures are pretty much the same on the two chambers. And now speaking about the seats, it's too early to speak about the seats. If we can see the next slide. But we can look at the actual component of the chamber, who was dominated until now. So we are talking about these actual seats because I'll explain you. The vote is not, the counting of the votes is not closed yet. They only counted for like 96% of the section, and only a part of the votes in diaspora. So they have to finish everything, and after finishing and allocating every mandate, so translating the vote in mandates, the votes of the parties who did not accede into the parliament will be redistributed. So that's why at this moment we do not know exactly what seats and how many, but we can make the prediction that the socialists will lose pretty much of the 133 seats. The pro-Romania will disappear and go anywhere else, the liberals and maybe the socialists. Also, the small parties in the right, the PMP and the PP-USL will disappear as well. And the National Liberal Party will, of course, win more seats, much more than the 82 that you see on the screen right now. And the other political force, USR Plus, will almost double the number of deputies in the parliament. So now, talking about losers and winners, I do not like too much to make this distinction because, as I told you, we cannot really talk about winners. But anyway, every political leader has his reasons to believe that he won, and I propose to change the slide and to talk a little bit about the president of the Socialist Party, the Social Democrat Party, Marcel Ciolacu. He's the winner inside his party, I'd said, because if he didn't had this very good score of 30%, he would have been challenged internally, maybe by Gabriela Fira, who ran for the chair of mayor of Bucharest, which she lost. So he, if he hadn't had that a very good score at these elections, he would have been internally challenged. And so now he secured once the position of president of the Socialist Party. He will preserve also the position of leader of the opposition. So from this perspective, he's also a winner, because if Victor Ponta, his antagonist, Victor Ponta was member of the Socialist Democratic Party, if Victor Ponta would have made it to the parliament, Marcel Ciolacu would have had difficulties, because Victor Ponta is a much more present person, much vocal, and he would have, de facto play the role of leader of the opposition. With Ponta out of the parliament, Marcel Ciolacu has the chance to participate in the parliament as the leader of the opposition. He has the advantage of being a moderate leader. He led the transformation and reform in the party after Liviu Dragnea going to jail, and after Viorica Dăncilă lost the presidential elections. He made a pretty good reform of the party. He got rid of the Eurosceptics, of the sovereignists, and of the nationalists. So now the party is a frequentable party and a modern, we hope, social democratic European party. But he is also a loser, because the Social Democratic Party won this election, is on the first place. He won't be able to form a majority, because President Klaus Iohannis announced that this party was isolated, will be isolated in the parliament with 30%. There's no way to make any alliance. So apparently for them, at least for the next few years, they will stay in opposition. Next leader, which we're going to talk about a little bit, is the ex-Prime Minister Ludovic Orban. He's the sacrificed leader. He had to step down after deceiving results of the Liberals, but not so bad results, I must say. Remember, in 2016, the Liberals had 20%, and now they have 25%. He stepped down in order to loosen a little bit the pressure on the Liberals in the upcoming negotiation for a majority, because already the USR Plus leader, Dacian Cioloș, said that they would not negotiate a majority with a prime minister who lost actually the elections. So Ludovic Orban stepped down. He is focusing now on the party, because he remained leader of the Liberals. He focuses on the party, on the negotiations upcoming, and he has not finished what he has to say. Most probably he will lead the Liberals from the position of leader of the Chamber of the Deputies. He's a very popular politician, a very decent one. He's loved by his armies, but not only. He would have been attacked if he stayed in this position of prime minister, so he decided to step down. Another political leader, Dan Barna, if we can change the slide, please. Dan Barna is the leader of the USR. He's highly contested in the party. His leadership is considered to lack transparency. He has the tendency to take dictatorial decisions, but not directly, by proxy, by a committee with Fidesz. He, for an example, erased some candidates for diaspora and replaced them with some of his favorites. So part of his colleagues, like the Senator Florina Presada, asked already the demission of this leader, Dan Barna. The other leader of the alliance, Dacian Cioloș, which is well known in Brussels as ex-Commissioner for Agriculture and leader of Renewing the European Parliament, is not perceived is perceived in Romania like a leader without aura. he keeps repeating, an example, he keeps repeating that he is the proposition of this alliance for the seat of prime minister, but they only have 15% of results, which make him look inadequate with this kind of discourse. And it's hard to know even what his political party, Plus, would have done without the presence in this alliance with USR, because I remind you, in 2016 they didn't even exist as party branded like that. Another leader, another slide. George Simeon, he came, as I told you, as a surprise, but he's not so unknown. He already ran for the European Parliament in 2019 and got 3% as independent, which is pretty much. He built himself an image of nationalist. He fought for the reunification of Republic of Moldova with Romania. He's ambitious, he's restless. He made this kind of alliance with extreme conservators, adepts of the traditional family, anti-LGBT, pro-church, etc. And they are in parliament with almost 9%. It's interesting. We shall see what is happening. But at the same time, let's remember that every country, maybe in Europe, has this basin of about 7% of far-right radical movement. So we are still in this safe zone, I'd say. If we can change the slide, we have now Kelemen Hunor, who is the leader of this alliance of Hungarians in Romania. He's discreet but indispensable. He's the key of the next majority. With his 6%, he is going to assure the good majority for the next government. He always was the one to play between socialists and the liberals, as they say, to maintain the balance in the parliament. Until now, he only supported the government from outside, but now he gave the signal that he would join. And most probably the UDMR is going to get 2 ministries, and one of these ministries apparently will be for him, for Kelemen Hunor, the Ministry of Culture. He has been already Minister of Culture in a previous government. And just a few seconds to remind other 2 leaders, losers, I'd say. Let's change the slide, please. We have Eugen Tomac. He's the right hand of the ex-president Traian Băsescu and the president of this small party, Mișcarea Populară, the Popular Movement, which is a party of center-right, a member in the EPP, so the classical conservative party. He didn't make it, unfortunately, I say, for the liberals, because the liberals wanted to have this party as an ally, as they are already members in the EPP and colleagues with UDMR and with this small party PMP. And the big losers, speaking in terms of losers and winners, we can change the slide, please, is Victor Ponta. He's the president of this relatively new party. He formed this party after he left the Social Democratic Party. We could say he's the big loser because with the small party, Ponta hoped to play the cat and mouse with majority. He also wanted to pay back the socialists for the fact they did not follow him as he would have liked from PSD, I mean. His ambitions was to run for president in 2024, which apparently will not happen anymore because he has no political future. So this would be very fast the political scene in Romania these days, and of course we are waiting to see what's next. Next will be harsh negotiations for a majority. The liberals will lead, that's clear, because President Iohannis announced the fact that the liberals are the first violin in this concept. But USR Plus are expected, they already began, as I told you, are expected to create trouble as they are very vocal and, sometimes even disturbing. The Liberal will impose a prime minister. We already have some names which circulate on the market, political market, but it's still too early to say who will be the next prime minister. Which we know for sure they will not give up some key ministers like the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Minister of the European Funds, which is very important in the perspective of the accessions to the European funds since 2021, and of course the Minister of Development, which assures funds for the big infrastructure. That's about it. Very quick. I'm waiting for the questions if you are interested in knowing more about what happened in Romania.
Dear Lucian, thank you very much for that overview. And we will try to get even to dive a bit deeper now into Romanian politics and about the results. What I could see immediately was there are no women around in your politics. Am I right? Where are they?
You are right partly, but I must say that at one of the televised meetings which happened a few days before the elections, a whole TV studio was only with men. So yeah, you are right. Maybe the women are not very well represented in this men's game. But we must confess also that we have some political leaders in this new movement, USR Plus, like Senator Florina Presada and other women which are present and make a good job in the parliament. Also from the party, the Popular Movement, and from the Liberals. But we had the ex-president of the National Party was a woman, Alina Gorghiu. So yeah, the women are present. Maybe not. I do not have statistics, but they are present in under 20%. I think that's much more to be done here.
Is the low voter turnout? I guess you have about 18 million potential voters in Romania, but only 7 came to the polls. So what was the reason for that? Was it COVID? Was it the pandemic? Or was it distrust of politicians or a fatigue of politics in general? What do you think?
Yeah. On the one hand, it was the fatigue. We had many electoral voting since we began in 2019 with the European elections for the European Parliament, where many Romanians in the diaspora went to vote because they hated the politics of Liviu Dragnea, who the next day after the elections went to jail for corruption, and then did this black period for Romania, in which we were on the spot of the European Commission, like the third country after Hungary and Poland, the third troublemaker, I'd say. Then we had the presidential elections last year. Now we had in September the local elections, and now the round of elections for the parliamentary elections, which are not traditionally a very the turnout is not very good traditionally, but now we had the lowest turnout ever, maybe because of the COVID, because it's also this COVID fatigue. The authorities said, you stay in home, you stay safe, you don't go. We have even some cities which are in partial quarantine, in partial curfew. So the people, they maybe thought if the authorities told us to stay in the house, now they are calling us to vote. So it was a schizophrenia here, and they did not went out to the vote. And particularly, it was a very bad weather outside, which maybe made the people decide to stay at home. As for the diaspora, it was another problem. They couldn't vote if they did not had residential papers. So we know many of the Romanians, unfortunately, are working abroad without these residential papers. So they are officially like tourists in foreign countries. so they couldn't vote, which is valuable also for Romanians. So if I do not reside in the X city and I was traveling to the mountain or in another city, I couldn't vote on a special list, only if I had residential papers in that city. So this stopped many people to vote, even they would have wanted to vote.
Well, until yesterday, Prime Minister, Mr. Ludovic Orban, he was the one who drove the country through the pandemic. And as he got so disappointing little votes, I know he has expected much more, was the reason that he didn't get the good way to drive through the pandemic? Was that, did the voters, did they not vote because of COVID?
Yes.
So they thought that he might have done it better.
Well, in the speech when he announced he would step down, he said he has done all that is humanely possible to manage this crisis, and we know that we have to be honest and say that no party in power, in government, in such extraordinary measure, in such extraordinary pandemic, would have done better. It's very difficult. It's a disease we do not know how it functions. The hospitals are the same, even if the socialists were in power. Now the hospitals, the medical system, the lack of materials and everything are the same. The lack of discipline of the Romanians would have been the same. So in terms of management of the crisis, I would say that they had done the good thing with some asterisks, because they took some measures which I myself I did not understand. They closed the schools, but they let the betting houses opened. They closed the churches, but they let this type of bets opened in the casinos. So the people did not understand why couldn't I go to the church if those guys could go to the casino. So the liberals lost a lot, I think, on these kind of measures, which were taken, by the way, not by politicians, but by specialists, epidemiologists, the National Committee of Management of the Crisis. Another point that infuriated some of the Romanians was the fact that they announced the closure of the markets. And we in Romania, the difference of the Occident, we have permanent markets. We do not have flying markets like in Brussels. We have permanent markets where the peasants, the producers, come and sell their vegetables. So in the interdiction of functioning in these days when the Romanians go and make provisions for the winter, infuriating a lot of them, and they consider that the government is given a hand to the big supermarkets, to the big chains, and is killing the small producers.
Okay, so in Romania you had for 20 years or so the Social Democrats in power, so they were the real power of the country. And then we all remember these huge demonstrations against corruption and then you had this vote of no confidence, and then power changed. And since the last year it has been the liberals on top. So everybody would have expected that the liberal manifest their power now. But it doesn't seem like that we have a kind of wind of change in Romania. It seems to be like more of the same, isn't it?
Yes, Ingrid, and the explanation is simple. The liberals got the government after a motion of censure, but they do not have the majority in the parliament. The parliament continued to be dominated by the socialists, which blocked every initiative that the liberals and the USR had. So it's very difficult to change anything in this condition. That's why the President Klaus Iohannis called the Romanians to vote to put an end to this, because the socialists in their speeches, they say we are in opposition, but they de facto were at power, and they had all the institutions like the Constitutional Court with them, because the Constitutional Court has people is renewed every 3 years, and was dominated by their men, of course, which blocked about we're talking about pandemic now. They blocked all the measures that the government was announcing. They were blocked or attacked by the advocate of the people, which, by the way, is the next member of the European Parliament, Renate Weber. So, from this point of view, it is very difficult to govern a country when you are blocked and you are having a minority executive. That's why Klaus Iohannis called for Romanians to go to vote. The Romanians did not go to vote, and now we'll have difficult years to come, because this alliance, this majority, is not going to function. They never functioned well for 4 years.
I have a question here from one of our watchers. That question fits in perfectly here now. It's from Dr. Kurt Geisert, and he's asking, well, has the President Iohannis, that you have mentioned before, has he to take even more responsibility due to the unclear result of the elections? What can he do?
Yes, and he said something like this in his speech. He said that he had listened to the message of the people. He had understand it. He put himself inside we heard the people's voice. He recognized that he maybe was not doing well at talking, because he had a period of weeks in which almost daily he attacked the socialists, which was not very nice from their point of view, because the president should be a neutral president, even if he comes from a party. So yeah, he recognized in a way that he pushed that pedal maybe a bit too much, and finally he got the opposite result. We have the socialist with 30% alive and kicking in the parliament. So yeah, the president recognized the fact that he maybe done something wrong, but that's it. Ludovic Orban paid after all.
And what kind of coalition could that be in the end? And what direction would it take? Would it be a pro-European coalition?
No, from this point of view, the things are pretty clear. That will be a coalition, a profound pro-European coalition. So there is no worries here. It will be a coalition formed by the Liberals, which have 25%, with USR Plus, which has his own 15%. So we have 40%, and with 6% of the Hungarians have 46%, and with the redistribution we have above 50%. And if we add to that the minorities, because traditionally the minorities have special seats in the parliament, so they have 17 seats, which are reserved for the members of the minorities in Romania. We have one of the most advanced laws regarding minorities. They have all the rights here in Romania. So with the minorities, which traditionally play with the power, we have this majority. The problem, so pro-European, the problem is how inside this majority they will work, because USR Plus, and this is my concern and not only mine, are very vocal. They do not like so much the consensus. They are not like the normal parties, and the negotiation could explode anytime. So it will be 4 years of negotiations, and at some point they might broke up. I don't know. That's the concern, but not the pro-European trend of the country for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And what about corruption? Was it one of the big issues during the electoral campaign, or is it already, with Mr. Liviu Dragnea being in prison, is it already done?
No, not at all. It was not a theme during the campaign. Only the pandemic and the way the government managed it or did not manage it was the theme. It's true that in the last day we saw some police special forces sent for big infractions in drugs, prostitution, and everything like this. So they discontinued some networks, but not the corruption we are used to, the corruption of the politicians. We had some small politicians like ex-mayors from small towns or small sectors in Bucharest, which were called for questioning at the Department of Anti-Corruption, but that's clear that this department does not function as it did during Laura Codruța's Kövesi leadership. We wait for more, and we wait the report of the European Commission on in the cooperation and verification mechanism to see how things have changed. It's true that the politicians have arrest to pay for the Commission of Venice, which asked for the closure of this special section to question the magistrates. The special section functions functions because the Liberals did not find the majority in the parliament to close it. So the Ludovic Orban, the prime minister, said he would not pass an emergency ordinance to close this section because we had a referendum last year in which the Romanians voted for the government not to interfere in the justice with this kind of emergency ordinance.
And what would you say, Lucian, what would be the most important task for the new government to do now, or which would be the most important reform to tackle?
First of all, we have to have a budget. We have a huge budgetary deficit of more than 10%, and even if the Commission has allowed us to deposit the deficits, I think Romania is one of the champions. So we have to cut costs. We have to reform the public apparatus. There are too many public servants in Romania. It's a very big apparatus with very big costs. So this is one of the trends. The other trends is the good administration of European funds, because here in Romania we talk all the time about European funds and how the billions from Brussels will come, but nobody talks about the fact that we have to make projects for it, and that only a part of them are grants and the other part are loans, and things are more complicated, and you have to have people who know to write these projects. So the administrative capacity is another thing, and the big thing that we have to solve in these 4 years plus 3, so in the next multi-annual framework, is the infrastructure. We have to build the highways we do not have built until now. We have to build the ferroviary infrastructure we have not built. So the big projects in infrastructure are should be the priority of the new government. They were priority in the program of the Liberals, and I hope they will remain so.
Well, thank you, Lucian. I guess there would be 1,000 more questions that I could ask you, and you would answer them. But I guess we have to find an end. Thank you so much for giving us such vivid insights into Romanian politics. Thank you, and have a good day, and good luck for the next days. Not too much work for you.
Thank you.
And ich möchte mich auch hier bei Ihnen, bei unseren Zuschauern bedanken.
And I would like to thank you, our audience. And before I say goodbye, I'd like to point out the next event, which is going to take place at the State Representation of Hessen on the 15th of December at 3 p.m. There's going to be a discussion on the Action Plan European Democracy, and on the 16th of December at 2 p.m. we'll have a discussion about the future cooperation and market access of the UK to the EU. Well, thank you very much. I hope that there was something in it that was of interest to you. Goodbye.